I guess his clan tag image is just a different version of the same face, though. It's not quite the standard Keck W, is it, to Muslim?
No, but I do like it floating on hatcheries and stuff. I kind of want more of my CC.
I'm a fan of it. I've seen so many versions of that video, and my brain has cataloged them all as being different instances of that same meeting. So it's definitely been a far-reaching meme, to say the least. Serral going for the pool first, does not want to take any chances, I assume, if Lambo were to be bringing the heat early on, so to speak.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool move by Serral. This is the shortest map in the pool. Like, this got through the vetoing system between these two, and going up against Lambo, who has been a guy that has been a little bit sneaky against him in the past, and yeah, he's been a drone puller. Like, I kind of famously remember Lambo doing the drone pull to Serral, and then Serral having a response to it that nobody else did, which was drilling onto 2 separate patches, and it somehow worked out way better. So Serral's been a guy that's kind of been able to thwart off Lambo each time, but it's kind of like that tennis fella who he ended up losing like 16 times against one dude in a row, and then finally he did crack him, and then he was quite cocky about it. I feel that that's potentially the situation that could happen between these two, because Lambo does have what it takes to take maps off Serral and really push him.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. And I'm going to take what you just said even further. And if you think about it, that's the story of almost all of our top players right now, right? Like, for years, it's been people talking about, when Raynor gets old enough and he's allowed to compete in WCS and, eventually now EPT, he's going to be really good. And even when he was starting to do the competitions, it's not like he was immediately unstoppable, right? Like, he just kind of, he just reacted and improved off of his opponent's gameplay just faster than everybody else. And it's kind of the same thing for Serral. Like, he wasn't just immediately dominant. You brought up his match score against Marine Lord. Like, in the earlier days of his career, yeah, Marine Lord would clap him every time. But it's that extended period, all of that experience, all of those games being played. And, at any point, Lambo could tip the scales into being like, yes, I have figured out how to play ZVZ against Serral. Especially as one of the players who's been experimenting, as you just pointed out, is one of the players experimenting the most in terms of trying to kill him.
And look at this already. So it's a really fast lair. There's an Evo chamber and a Roach Warren up at the front. So this is one of those situations, which is what I'm on about. Like, Lambo has done this very cheeky stuff. And if there was a map to try it on, this is kind of it. In the past, Lambo's done like creep highway kind of shenanigans where you get to your opponent's base even quicker. And what we really need to see from Serral this game, by the way, that's a nice little Overlord snipe there, because that can stop the creep highway if it was to happen. We're going to see Serral constantly trying to find out exactly what's going on behind this wall of Lambo, and how he's going to do it. Well, we'll see. I don't know if Lambo realizes. Okay, he does realize. I was about to say he's got a little gap there above the Roach Warren. Sometimes you don't notice these things on the new maps, but he does fill that in.
Yeah, I have definitely lost games off of that. I mean, that's one of those things that you really got to make sure you nail down early on. Of course, he might have been considering blocking on the south side with another building at some other point. Maybe he wanted the top to be open, but regardless, Roach speed halfway done. And considering the lair timing of Serral, I mean, we know that Roaches with +1 are good against Zerglings. So since he's going to have Roach speed so much faster than Serral, even if Lambo can't do a tremendous amount of damage or he doesn't want to go for an all-in, he's going to have like that soft map control where, yeah, they're not as fast as the Lings, but he'll be able to engage them. And maybe he can put on some really good pressure with this, because he won't be able to be chased. Since Serral just won't have Roach speed, even if he doesn't have enough Roaches, he'll always have the option to bring his Roaches home.
And what I like about this from Lambo as well, this isn't necessarily an all-in. Like, he's going for the second Evo with the upgrades now, but it is unusual. And now we see that he's kind of pushing out, pretending it's an all-in, while droning up like a madman. And Serral, he's got to respect this, otherwise he could end up dead. So what's he doing? He's trying to find out exactly what's going on. So he's like, oh, there's even more Roaches over here. Okay, I think it is an all-in for sure. But Lambo's kind of spending quite some time just fending off these Lings, so maybe this is enough info for Serral, and it is. Immediately, drones start up. So there is a lot of kind of like baiting and prodding between these two players, and they'll continue to be throughout this whole series.
Yeah, it seems like Lambo might be showing a little too much respect to those Lings out on the map. Like, I would have really liked to see him try to bring a poke or something like that while the Roach speed wasn't available for Serral to punish him if he undercommitted or something of that sort. But regardless, he's going to get his third base up a little bit later. Still, probably the nicest thing is he's going to have that +2 attack coming in significantly faster than Serral, who hasn't started it yet. So at the very least, if he can get an upgrade advantage, that can be one of the things he can use to turn the tide. And Lambo going for Roach Burrow as well. So he's really going to try and pull out all the stops in the Roach v Roach. And I feel like when we talk about these types of styles clashing, if Serral just plays standard, he should just have more roaches, right? Because he's not putting money into the other tech.
Yes, but he's also behind in workers right now. And that's kind of down to the build that Lambo chose. Like, he's put him in an uncomfortable position constantly right from the get-go. Like, if Serral didn't respect it, he could have been dead. And there was a lot of position for Lambo to kind of like change up what he was doing, which makes it a very uncomfortable build to play against. But Serral, both at 122 out of 122 supply, by the way, like they have ended up in very similar positions, but we'll see, because Lambo definitely has that 2-1 window and the tunneling claws. Like, if this game goes on for, another couple of minutes, it could get very problematic for Serral.
Yeah, and this is a big opportunity for him to get some significant damage done with all of these Ravagers. One of the things we know a lot of players like to do, throw the biles onto the eggs if they don't want to take that forward position. Lambo trying to keep that spread. The hard thing here is there's just so many roaches getting to the Ravagers of Serral. It's just going to be so difficult for him. But that's what the burrow is for. He sharks out from underneath. He gets one of the Ravagers, goes for 2. And keep in mind, if he doesn't have the detection here, he can still just try and focus down those Ravagers, reposition. Of course, that also regenerates their health pretty quickly. And suddenly, the tides are starting to turn just a little bit. If only that +2 attack was just a smidge faster. He does lose a significant number of drones, but he's not too far behind at the end of it. And now, the Muslim, he's also got the roaches on the other side of the map. No spore crawlers to provide vision. And suddenly, Lambo is trying to take the steering wheel of this game.
I think that was really good buffering with the drones, because even though he lost a lot, he realizes that his potential is now. So just making sure that he doesn't lose out his big roach count, which is absolutely his lead here. I think Serral's in a super amount of trouble. He's behind in upgrades. He's behind in army. He's behind in every way possible, it feels like.
Yeah, and now that +2 attack upgrade lead is here for Lambo, and there are no burrow abilities to help Serral get to those Ravagers to deny those corrosive biles. He's got a beautiful spread shooting over the backs of those roaches. Of course, defender's advantage is in play for Serral to reinforce, but if he is able to get a couple of good shots off, he could reset the momentum. But good focus fire down on the Ravagers. Serral is able to remove them from the equation, but there's still a good number of roaches here for Lambo. He's not giving up. Non-stop roaches streaming across the map for our blue Zerg.
Oh, Serral's doing a nice job bringing back the wounded roaches, then turning them into Ravagers, but Lambo's also counter-microing with the burrow, doing what he can. This is so close between the both of them. The drone count is very, very similar, and both of them just throwing out as many roaches as they can at one another, but Serral has to be so darn careful, because at any moment here, he could just be swept out, and tunneling clawed roaches could be everywhere in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, I mean, that's the scariest part about these types of builds, right? Is that you have to be very careful about, even if the player's willing to stack a few of them, good contamination there for Lambo. He's going to deny larva for a good bit of time from that hatchery for Serral. He's going to come back with another attack over here. It's just 2 Ravagers on both sides, still plenty of roaches. That +2 attack upgrade lead, though, is really what he wants to leverage, and he's able to do so. GG, Lambo takes the first map in this best of 3. Well, that's pretty freaking crazy, huh, Ben?
It's really crazy, and I'm just looking at like the workers active graph and like the resource collection graph. Lambo is actually nearly always ahead this game in terms of workers and like resources being gained. So there was definitely he definitely knows how to make Serral feel really uncomfortable. And I loved the play by Lambo. The build was unorthodox, but it was good, and it offered a lot of leeway to do things to throw off his opponent, which is like going toe-to-toe with Serral at his own game, which is like doing the Ling Bane thing at the start, then switching into roaches and what have you. It's going to be really hard. So doing something like this and kind of bypassing that entirely and just pinning the game on your opponent, he has to make the right call at the right time every time. And there's so many avenues to go down as well. Just really good play by Lambo.
Absolutely fantastic. And I think what you were saying is about the most legit thing it could be, is that his build as well was a little bit strange, but it was good, and it kind of left I feel like it kind of left Serral scratching his head a little bit as to what it was that he was going up against in that map. And Lambo pointed out in the lobby for game number 1, he pointed out to Serral, he's like, you only need to win 1 map to secure first place in the group or something like that. And I'm like, I don't know if he's trying to put something in his head, but I'm like, now if Lambo's able to somehow get a 2-0 over Serral, I mean, that's just like boom, right? Heads are going to be rolling, and we are loaded in.
Yeah, and speaking of the German himself, spawning in the bottom right-hand side, playing for no team. That is no team, by the way. It is Lambo.
And his opponent in the Northwest, very well known, the Red Zerg from ENCE, he is Serral. Well, match gameplay like that, we got to get him at least. We got to hit up. We got to get the sponsorships up for Team Roddy. Get Lambo on there. Man, he's bringing it.
I was thinking like maybe FaZe, maybe 100 Thieves, but no, Team Roddy.
I don't know why.
Let's bypass those smaller teams. Let's just go straight to Team Roddy.
I was gonna say, I'm like, my dream for non-Korean StarCraft especially is I want to see Team Roddy and Team Wardy skyrocket, get all the big sponsors, get everybody in. Just have a bunch of community-owned teams that keep everything going, because at least when I think about StarCraft, that's really what I think about, right? It's a game that is really held up very well by the community. There's just so many hardworking people that day in and day out put out the content, keep everything going. Like, we have so many tournaments, and it's just, it's awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All I got to say, man.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up into it, and it's totally taken me by the hand and walked me through life. It's been beautiful. And the fact that it's still going strong after 10 years, it's amazing to see, But anyhow, talking about this game, so this time Serral did go for like a hatch first. He wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for a pool first on this really, really small map, and this way you won't catch me off guard, haha. But then he caught him off guard, which was kind of like, a bit of irony right there. But we will see how Lambo does duke it out against Serral in a much more standard opening here, going for the Ling opening with speed.
Yeah, and I feel like it doesn't hurt too much to, kind of take things back to normal. Going into Death Aura, we've got a very large map. I think you also have to be careful as well if you're Lambo, because you can get quite an adrenaline rush from getting like a big win like that against Serral. You need to make sure that you keep everything cool, calm, and collected going into the next match. When I think of Serral, I think of I kind of think about like real sports situations where like players have like an imposing presence, right? That just being there on the field, getting in people's faces, just that alone without actually doing anything can, it can bring that feeling of anxiety. Like, what is he going to do? I know he's capable of anything, like it's not going to be easy no matter what I do to try to beat him. And I feel like Lambo handled it extremely well in game number 1, and don't go too far into it again on game number 2, because I think he's got what it takes to keep moving.
Yeah. Also, what I'm about to say about Lambo, it can be construed as like I'm being insulting, but I don't mean this in any way insulting. In fact, it's so good for gaming. Lambo is very cocky. So in his head, he can be like, yeah, Serral's the best, but I'm really damn good too. So I'm like, even though I can throw out weird stuff, like you better not sleep on me kind of thing. And right now he's going for +1 melee upgrade. So even though he was showing everything to be kind of normal and standard from his side, again, he's going kind of offbeat, which I think is super duper cool. And Death Aura, even though it's got those speed zones, it is a very large map. So if you can get into this position where maybe you can get up to Mutiling Bane and have dare I say, like ultras late game, the fact that it is such a huge map could be really, really cool to see how it pans out, really.
Yeah. I mean, the map is big, right? So Lings naturally being able to get around quickly are nice. I also think it's just smart to kind of show a different look in the second game, whereas Serral might be thinking to himself, okay, is this going to be like, am I going to be dealing with fast roaches with speed again? But the lair close to finishing out for Lambo. We've got a decent number of roaches, though, coming out for Serral. And mind you, he doesn't have the lair. He doesn't have roach speed. So is he going to try and just walk a bunch of roaches across the map here? Let's see if Lambo is able to see this and react in time to to how he's going to try and do this.
He's absolutely going to go for it, and he's kind of been waiting till he gets a really good number, and then going, and Lambo knows that he has no chance of holding it, and I mean, an early tap out. You know, some people are probably like, hey, why did he leave? Well, he was kind of dead.
Yeah.
And yeah, guys, we'll get to find out what happens in the third game of the series right after this break. Hello guys, welcome back. That was a little bit of an abrupt ending to game 2. Me and Nathanius just went over it though, and Lambo did indeed produce, well, he was like, okay, I'm getting Lings, I'm getting the upgrades and stuff for Lings, it's awesome. And then it was like, boom, he started making 8 drones, and that's as soon as he saw the roaches moving out to his side of the map, and it was like, well, I'm a bit dead here. So Lambo was indeed caught off guard there. He didn't have a roach warren available, so he couldn't produce his own roaches. And when you are against Roachling Bane from potentially the best player in the world, and you just made way too many drones, yeah, you're going to be a little bit dead.
Yeah, my only assumption could be that he thought the roaches that Serral built at first were just defensive roaches, right? But no, he was going to get ready for a big attack. And 8 drones queued while roaches are crossing the map is not a good recipe, especially without your own roach warren. We are loaded into Golden Wall to decide who is going to move on, who's going to win this series. In the bottom left, the red Zerg, he is Serral.
And spawning over in the bottom right-hand side as our blue Zerg, it is Lambo. Golden Wall's always an interesting one. Like, regardless of what matchup you get on this map, like the gold base always adds something else to it. Also, the fact that you can potentially kind of expand down to the bottom or totally ignore it in some case situations, but there's never really a dry or dull moment on this map, I feel.
Yeah, I feel I am not like crazy about this map, but I will say there really are no boring games on Golden Wall. Like people have generally tried to make good use of it because like the layout of this map is just so strange because at the start, at the very, very beginning, unless you're doing some insane cheese build, it's kind of like, I don't know if this sounds crazy, but it kind of gives me like the upside down like habitation station, or what, or am I thinking of the wrong map? That famous Scarlet versus Bomber map or whatever it was.
It is habitation, yeah.
where like it's basically airspace at the beginning, but then the ways that you can use the ground in there or take those bases can be like really, really, you can be really creative with it, I guess, which is always like a good thing to have in StarCraft. I think variety is the best thing about the game, and the maps really do a good job of fleshing that out, because there's really never been a map like Golden Wall before.
No, there hasn't. Interesting to rally that drone to out there. So maybe that was a timing that Serral had, that Lings can potentially show up at that moment if they do something a little bit cheeky, given that your Overlord Scout only just arrives right now. But yeah, this is a map, again, where Lambo can be a little bit cheeky, and we do see that he's already retained 100 gas, but he's not chosen to do anything with it. And any map where you have this ramp going up into the natural, it's always way harder to scout, because the vision, like you need to be at the top of that ramp to see what's actually behind it, which that makes it kind of cheeky and kind of tricky for Lambo. And again, the Evo chamber and the lair going up. The only difference this time is Serral starting his own lair and Evo chamber as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're getting into the weird territory then, I suppose. I mean, Lambo with the roach horn and that evolution chamber, you kind of get that vibe, right? That it's definitely going to be for the roaches, and Serral can start his now, and it will still line up with roach speed, and there it is. Now the drone heading over to make that. So are we just going to have like both players go for really fast roach speed and try to maybe use that that low ground with like some Ravagers and bile up the ramp? I'm not 100% sure what the best play here is. Both third base options are still like somewhat exposed. I guess the gold has the high ground, but there are many risks associated with that. So does it turn into like a contained game?
I have no idea. And I was just thinking to myself, have I ever seen two Zergs try and build Nidus at the same time? And I was thinking, no, I haven't. But that could also be potential here. Like, probably not. I think it's just going to go into like roach speed and then like trying to get +2 and stuff. And that's exactly what they do go for. So yeah, but we'll see what happens, because this is Serral kind of throwing out Lambo's own game at him, which I do really like from Serral. He's a player that's rounded it all up recently, or in fact, for the last couple of years, it feels like he's been really throwing out the cheeky things into his play, as well as the very, very solid macro games.
Yeah, it's really just the ability to have that range, not even because you're like good at all of the different things that you can do. Like, you might have a strong component of your gameplay, but if your opponent has to consider all options from you because they know you can at least do them all, like to like the standard level, that does have an impact, right? Like, you don't have the ability to just write off like, okay, well, Lambo never does this. It's like, no, like Lambo can pull anything off. And I feel the same thing kind of goes for Serral, right? Except it's in the, for this story purposes, it's really like Lambo's trying to reach being able to do it at that level of Serral. And so far in this series, we've gotten to see a little bit of that magic shine in game number 1. But both of these builds mirroring pretty well. And like I said, they're taking that gold base that's going to be the more defensible position with that high ground, with that ramp, and roach speed +1 lining up perfectly between the two of these players at both exactly 41 drones. Yeah, they are super mirrored builds. And you could say that Lambo, despite losing that Overlord, is doing a fine job of maybe eking slightly ahead. We did see Serral, I can't remember against which Zerg, but there was like a Ravager behind the gold mine, or like the gold minerals, which ended up killing like 17 workers or something crazy. I think it was Serral doing it, but we're already going to see little skirmishes happening, and using the Overlords to drop creep spread. I like that by Lambo, but you don't really want to fight against an equal number of roaches with a queen, but not unless you bring your own queen. But Lambo is ahead in supply here. Yeah, this is a big opportunity for Lambo. He was just mining out the middle mineral wall of the map. And if he is able to win this position, which it looks like he's doing a pretty good job of so far, he doesn't actually need to attack necessarily. He just needs to get a couple of roaches behind the mineral line of that gold base, or perhaps a Ravager or two. And this is exactly the type of thing I'm talking about. Like, he's really trying to use this map to his advantage. Now, at the same time, he does need to be careful about maintaining that mid position, because this can just as easily be flipped back onto him. And with those length of sight blockers, the way that he pushed the Overlord away, he can actually see through it. I'm not 100% sure how much vision is there for Serral as well, but right now, he's lost a couple of his drones. Lambo's keeping that army supply nice and high, and he is, I believe, winning this fight with this concave that he's got. The extra queen with those transfuses is not making quite the difference that he was looking for. At the very least, being able to affect the economy of the opponent is going to affect how many roaches they're both going to have in a minute or two from now.
I am really surprised that Serral managed to kind of edge that out a little bit, but I think Lambo's doing it. The fact that he's able to be very aggressive at this gold base and being in the middle as well, like, I really feel that Lambo could very much benefit from trying to turn that Roach into a Ravager behind the gold minerals there. But the thing is, the gas is so tight, and using that gas to make a Ravager there and not in the middle fight could actually be his undoing. And gets a Ravager sniped by Serral. That was very quick by him.
He brought a drone over. I'm not 100% sure if this is just the chaos of the game, as we got a couple of workers now mixed in with these roaches. But I do really like how much Lambo has fought to control the opening in that mineral wall. He mined the furthermost right side patch so that he could defend it more easily. And this is just really intelligent play coming out of Lambo to use the map like this. And he doesn't need to fight or take the other base. He just needs to zone out the only possible path that can be taken to really just like get to that Roach behind the mineral line. But it does look like we're gonna have a little bit of a skirmish as the Queens are trying to come across for Serral. He's trying to go around the length of sight blocker, but the concave greatly in favor of Lambo because of that to Muslim.
And Lambo, he's made sure that Serral isn't mining from that gold base at all. And Lambo takes down Serral 2